Welcome back to the news at 10. The MultiChoice Talent Factory Academy in Nigeria has released its first batch of graduates into the creative industry. The academy, which worked in partnership with the School of Media and Communications of the Pan-Atlantic University, held the graduation at the Lagos Business School in Aja. The aim of the academy is for the students to become key players in the growth of Africa's film industry.
These 20 young people have been empowered and are ready to take on new grounds in the creative industry. They are the first set ever of the MultiChoice Talent Factory in Nigeria, which is in partnership with the Pan-Atlantic University's School of Media and Communications. After 12 months of intensive learnings and trainings from facilitators at the SMC and practitioners from the film industry, they're fully equipped.
Africa's creative industry is constantly changing, but I believe you have the right mindset, skill, passion, and commitment to take on this challenge and get ahead of the change, because you are the future. You are the generation that has the great opportunity to impact the industry. Your purpose and your promise is undeniable.
This scholarship is an invaluable investment that over 3,000 other people sought and did not get. Let it bear fruit. Never stop creating. That is the only way you grow. Remember, freely you have been given. I hope freely you would also give.
The special guest of honor, who is the Lagos State Commissioner for Tourism, Arts and Culture, charges the graduating students to rewrite the stories of Nigeria and Africa at large.
I'm giving you a mandate today to go out into the world and shine. You are the ones that we're relying on to actually change the narrative in what we're calling Lagos and in what we're calling Nigeria.
One by one, the students are presented their academic certificates. Special awards are also given to those with outstanding performances.
It was a life-changing experience. I think that one word covers everything. So it had challenges, but it had really amazing moments. It had moments I learned a lot.
Among the 20 individuals are 4 Ghanaians who spent the better part of their second semester working with production companies and have released 2 films, Life of Bim and Dream Chaser, which will be aired on the 21st and 28th of September on African Magic Channel.
Congratulations to all the graduates. From there, we move on to business news. Here's Kayode Okikiolu.
You First. First Bank.
Thank you, Ijoma, and you're welcome to Business News. The federal government has released $5.3 billion for the Ibadan Kano standard gauge rail project, and this is part of efforts to ease the constraints around transportation within the country. Well, the Minister of Transport, Mr. Chibuike Amechi, announced the approval at a meeting with maritime sector regulators and operators in Lagos, a sector he also says will be supervised by the Minister of State for Transport, Ms. Gbemisola Saraki, as our correspondent Temple Ashaju now reports.
Since his reappointment as the Minister of Transport, this will be Mr. Chibuike Amechi's first major engagement with key players in the maritime sector. One of the high points from the minister's introductory note is his announcement of a $5.3 billion as mobilization for the standard gauge rail project from Ibadan to Kano.
We got approvals to complete the $5.3 billion railway from Ibadan to Kano. We've also applied for funding to commence the coastal rail from Port Harcourt to Warri as a segment, and that segment from Benin to Onitsha.
In his company is the Minister of State for Transport, Ms. Gbemisola Saraki, whom Mr. Amechi says will be spearheading the maritime sector affairs.
Having this sort of stakeholders conference helps in creating that synergy. However, I feel it has to be more regular has to be rather than once in a while where we all come and meet and then leave.
Concerns were raised from the audience, some of which range from maritime security to the cost of doing business, infrastructure, and the single window program of government.
We have to look at what is our dwell time of cargo. We have to look at what kind of equipments do a terminal has. We have to look at the processes and procedures.
Mostly they will create more on security, and we're already focusing on security. And so we deliver on that. We're listening to them. After 6 months to 1 year, we'll come back to them again and say, have we been able to achieve those things you wanted us to achieve? And there are new things you want us to do.
We will be coming out later on with a program of what we're trying to achieve within the next 4 years. For it to tie in, so there's synergy with what the president's trying to achieve.
This dialogue session has served its purpose of setting one of the critical agenda for President Muhammadu Buhari, one that would be expected to result in policy reforms in Nigeria's Belt and Road initiatives.
First time.
Temple Ashaju, Channels Television News.
Already do what you want.
Still on infrastructure, the Director General of the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission, Mr. Chidi Zua, says the agency has issued 107 certificates of compliance to companies who have done well in the areas of public-private partnerships across the country. The award, according to him, is expected to serve as a boost to all companies handling public-private partnership projects across the country to maintain high standards in the provision of infrastructural development. Speaking at the third quarter PPP Consultative Forum in Abuja, Mr. Ezua also announced plans to close gender gaps through infrastructural development.
At the end of August 2019, the Commission has granted 9 outline business case and 9 full business case compliance certificates for 2019, bringing the total compliance certificates granted since inception to 76 OBC and 31 FBC certificates. The latest of this certificate is the OBC compliance certificate that we issued to the Federal Ministry of Health for the 22 teaching hospitals upgrade. This is something, the medical equipment supply scheme will transform the health sector landscape in our country. The other one is also the FBC compliance certificate for the automatic ticketing system, which we have issued to the Federal Ministry of Transport and the Nigerian Railway Corporation. That is also something that would transform the way ticketing is done to a world-class level. People no longer need to go to the stations and stand. They can offline, online, wherever they are, purchase their tickets. And that will increase revenue generation and also increase transparency in the particular process.
More business stories. Investors at the equities market sustained positive sentiment for a second day this week, extending bargain hunting for high-value stocks across 5 major sectors of the NSE. Well, let's get the details from Teniola Shuboali.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. The stock market closed Thursday's trading higher with a 1.01% rally and strong gains across the 5 key sectors of the NSE, marking one of its best performances so far this year. At the same time, the value of listed equities surged by 142 billion naira after investors intensified bargain hunting for blue chips equities in particular, key components of the consumer goods sector, which lifted that counter by 3.78%. Traders and analysts attribute the gains in today's session to President Muhammadu Buhari's victory at the election tribunal announced on Wednesday. Meanwhile, performance on the price chart was also impressive, with 22 gainers, led by 9.84% advance from ICO Group against 7 losers, led by 5% loss from Jais Bank, while the trio of Access Bank, Transcorp and Union Bank are major contributors to 115 million shares traded today. And that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Teniola Shuboali.
Thank you, Tenny. Well, major global markets also sustained positive performance today, and that's in response to delay of U.S. trade tariff on China, as well as the new stimulus package by the European Central Bank. Here are some of the figures. Thank you for watching Business News Tonight. I am Kayode Okikiolu. The news at 10 continues with Ijeoma.
You First. First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Kayode. The UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson denies he lied to the Queen over advice he gave her over the 5-week suspension of Parliament. Here's Juliana Oloyinka with more on the international scene and around the world in 5.
Good evening from the Channel's newsroom in London. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has denied lying to the Queen over the prorogation of Parliament. His rejection of the claim comes a day after the highest civil court in Scotland ruled the 5-week shutdown is unlawful. The government is launching an appeal which will be heard in the UK Supreme Court on Tuesday.
Did you lie to the Queen when you advised her to prorogue, to suspend Parliament?
Absolutely not. And indeed, as I say, the High Court in England plainly agrees with us, but the Supreme Court will have to decide. We need a Queen's speech. We need to get on and do all sorts of things.
Lawmakers are demanding Parliament be recalled immediately so that Brexit concerns can be addressed. The government was forced to publish Operation Yellowhammer, which warns that a no-deal scenario could lead to civil unrest as well as shortages of food and medicine.
The Yellowhammer documents are a worst-case scenario. They're produced so that government can take plans and take steps in order to mitigate any of those consequences. And over the course of the last 6 weeks, this government has taken considerable steps in order to ensure that if there is a no-deal scenario, that we can leave in the safest and smoothest possible way.
I'm sceptical that some of the statements that have been made to Parliament match what is actually in the report or cover it effectively. That's why we're so angry that Parliament was prorogued, because I should be in Parliament at the moment with the ability to interrogate the Prime Minister and ministers. Now we're prorogued, we can't do that.
The Prime Minister believes a Brexit deal can still be secured at next month's EU summit, but Europe says the Northern Ireland backstop must be part of the agreement, because so far the UK hasn't offered any credible alternatives.
Non ci sarà un accordo senza il backstop. Che sia molto chiaro. Questo lo pensa la Commissione, lo pensano le istituzioni europee ed è la posizione del Parlamento, che ricordo a tutti avrà l'ultima parola.
Regarding the talks, we are still ready to examine objectively any concrete and legally operational proposal from the UK.
At least 50 people were killed when a train derailed in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Steve Bakai, broke the news on Twitter, saying the incident happened at 3 a.m. in Tangakia. Offering the government's condolences, he said a meeting was being held to help the families who've been affected. The body of Robert Mugabe is now lying in state. Zimbabwe's former president died in Singapore last week at the age of 95. His body will remain at the Harare Sports Stadium until his funeral on Saturday. His family is still fighting a government plan to bury him at the National Heroes Acre Monument, saying they want his final resting place to be in his home village. The family of an Australian woman detained in Iran say they hope she'll be freed soon. Jolie King and her boyfriend Mark Firkin, who have dual British nationality, were arrested 10 weeks ago for allegedly flying a drone without a licence. They've been posting videos of their travels through Asia and the Middle East, which includes drone footage.
So the glacier, which we visited earlier, is up this valley here.
They plan to drive through 36 countries to reach the UK. There are reports the pair is being held as part of a plan to facilitate a prisoner swap with Australia. Jordan has joined the chorus of voices criticising an Israeli plan to annex a third of the occupied West Bank. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised to apply Israeli sovereignty over the Jordan Valley and Northern Dead Sea if he's returned to office for a record 5th term. Jordan says the move would be catastrophic and would hurt the peace process.
I expressed extreme alarm to His Excellency about the devastating consequences of this decision. The world has to act and act effectively decisively and act quickly to prevent this decision from being implemented, because that will push the whole area again into the abyss of despair and hopelessness, and will obviously destroy all the hard work that all of us have been doing over decades to bring about a resolution to this conflict on the basis of the two-state solution.
This would be a violation of international law, and if you violate the international law, there are consequences. That's, I think, the message we have to give.
And finally, some food for thought. A village in the Philippines has given people an incentive to clean up the community, exchanging a kilogram of rice for every 2 kilos of plastic waste. So far, the scheme appears to be working, with more than 200 kilograms of rubbish being collected during the month of August. It's then taken away for proper disposal and recycling. And that's your international news around the world in 5.
Thanks a lot, Juliana. Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria Football Federation confirms return of Super Eagles coach Salisu Yusuf after a 1-year ban. That's on Sports News. Please stay with us.